actually, to everyone watching, I would like to give you a very warm welcome to one of the very first panels of the day. My name is Joanna. I'm the content marketing lead at the Female Factor, so probably everything that you see of us, social media-wise or in your emails, it's something that I had to do it at some point. And I'm very, very excited to be here moderating the How to Get Back into Work panel. We have, as you can see, some very exciting ladies joining us today. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you of what Maris also mentioned on the main stage, that we have conference software that we're using. It's called Slido. And while going there and putting in the code, the Female Factor, you can actually log into our space and add any questions that you might have so that our panelists here can answer them. Should work very easily, and it's also what we'll be using to interact and find out more about you. So feel free, and if at any point you're having any difficulties, also feel free to let us know. So yeah, to get started, I will actually pass the mic to our wonderful ladies here and give them a bit of time to introduce themselves and tell us what they've been doing, what they're doing right now. Katarina, do you maybe want to start?
Yes, fine. Well, thank you for having me. It's the first time in quite a long time now speaking at a conference. Yeah, about me, about my background, maybe I'm actually, I majored in business, international business, and always focused on entrepreneurship and management of innovations. And I was actually one of the co-founders of the first version of Startup Life in Austria. So when I was like 23, there was a group of people and we just thought that there should be way more startups in Austria and that people from different universities should be able to work together. And we started this with this kind of event format on the weekends. And yeah, I guess most of you know where it went to and what came out of this.
Definitely.
I did a couple of years in corporate management, also business development. And then in 2014, I joined the startup team of 𝗏𝗏, the crowd investing platform. And I was one of the core team members of 𝗏𝗏 for about 5 years. In the end, also the CEO of the Austrian corporation. And and then on the side, maybe I also started teaching. So I teach at 2 universities in Austria, and courses about startup financing and business modeling in general. And yeah, I already led up to it in 2019. In January, I became mother of a wonderful boy. And I kind of changed, it also of course changed my whole life and also my career a bit. Right now I actually left 𝗏𝗏. I'm still kind of at home with my boy, but also working on the other hand. I took up startup mentoring for a startup in Upper Austria, which is also at the 𝗥𝗏𝗄𝗵 Innovation Center. And I kind of founded an organization while I was in maternity leave. And I started some kind of social impact startup. It's the first time for me talking about it, and especially in English, so please excuse that. It's the organization is about finding new ways to help people with mental illness to get back into work. So also the title of this session here. And it's because of a personal reason. My brother actually has a mental illness, and we were affected by this for many, many years. And I took the time that I had while I was at home to apply for a public grant And now we are doing an innovation project and talking to lots of stakeholders who already work in the area of supporting people with mental illnesses and try to find out how we can in some ways better support them in the future.
That's amazing. And I think it's already such a great start to our session because there's so many things that you did. I'm sure attendants will have questions. Thank you so much. Renee, do you want to maybe take the mic?
Sure. I'm exactly the opposite. I did nothing traditionally. I did not go to university when I was supposed to. I did not start working the way that my parents and the family had wished I had. I went the complete opposite direction. So I probably did about every crappy job out there that there ever existed, starting from selling really horrible things up to working late into the night in the morning. I carried out newspapers. I did pretty much everything for a quick buck back in the days until I started figuring out how to not do that. I worked as my first career I had was in aviation, where I started at a low-cost airline, worked my way up to private jets, where I then really by good chance managed to become a team leader there in Moscow and managed a team of 18 women. And then later on transitioned because I started having kids. I have 2 wonderful children. I'm married to a really crazy Austrian guy who, thank God, is as spontaneous as has a great sense of humor. We got married, we had kids, which again is another thing I did very young and everyone was 100% against. They're like, what are you doing, you crazy person? And after that, that's when I started, when I started having kids and changing my career, that's when I also started studying. I started, educating myself, started looking into different things, and I slowly started transitioning into business, developing business. And then from there, I somehow, by the grace of God and whatever's out there, ended up working for the government. Especially for the OSCE Ministerial Council, which was a fantastic experience. Then again for the EU Council presidency that Austria held in 2018. And through that and through the different fields of work that I did and the different projects I got to develop with, these very cool people working on an international level, either bilateral, multilateral level, all the different stakeholders there are, and going into projects that are either EU-led or even across the EU borders. It was very, very exciting time. And then I ended up working, because everything I did, we were always looking for a new solution or an innovative solution or a different way to do things. And throughout that, I ended up coming into contact with 𝗨𝗨, who at the time was coming to Austria and negotiating with Austrian partners. And they were thinking about setting up an office in Austria, and I just really went in for it. And we're like, yeah, let's set up an office in Austria. Let me do that for you. And that's how I became the managing director for the Austrian office here. So we're based in Vienna, at the Vienna International Airport, where we run a program for smart cities and travel and hospitality, which, going back to aviation, I have my aviation background there, my travel and hospitality, and of course smart cities, because working with government and development, and that's how that whole thing came to be. And yeah, I'm here with my, I live here with my kids. And actually, as you can tell from my accent, I'm not Austrian. I'm from California originally. Moving to Austria was a huge impact on my life, and definitely there was some cultural adaptation that needed to happen there. A lot of integration going on, but I feel like my German is pretty decent, and I feel like I've done a good job so far. Even being a person of non-Caucasian color, I still made it happen for myself, and I never went the traditional route, but that's never been a bad thing in my experience.
Well, I think this is a good thing that we have so many different paths, like you said, on this panel, because it goes to show all the ways that you can make it, which is great. Thank you so much. Ruth, let's hear it from one of the last panelists.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's so exciting to be here with all of you. And it's great to also hear your stories. I think I might be in the middle between Katrina and Renee a little bit. It took me a while to really find my passion after the university. And I've always wanted to do something where I can actually do something and see something in return. So see a change happening. And it was crystallized that I actually want to do something good and give back. I started at Children and Youth University about 12 years ago, the 𝗨𝗰𝗵𝗰𝗵𝗃. I studied the concept for a few years in Krems and then wrote my thesis about it, and then came a project, and then there was the Youth University Krems, and it was for 250 children in the summer. It was a great event, huge, many children laughing and really wonderful. And the director said, oh, it's a great project, but we actually need to finance it. And we are a University of Applied Sciences, so we don't actually have the money. So you can go fundraising now. So that's how I got into fundraising. I had so much fun doing it, applying for grants, but then also really thinking about what is fundraising, what does it mean? So I applied for a Fulbright grant and went to the United States, got it, went to the United States and got my master's degree there, studying fundraising and nonprofit management. And then after there, working with children and youth has always been my passion, and I stayed there. I worked for a huge fundraising campaign for Kiwanis International, working with children and raising about 20 million in 5 years for Europe. I loved it. I love being in the States. So Renee, I think we have a lot in common. And then I traveled through Belgium and Germany with the company and had to come back because being in the States, if you're not a US citizen, is not that easy. So I stayed with the company and came back and stayed in fundraising and consulted NGOs and everything. And why getting back into work? Actually, 10 months ago, I also had a career change, so to speak. I had my little son and realized that it's not that easy to actually stay in your job because some people think that once you have a kid, you actually don't want to work anymore, which is totally not me. So I thought, okay, what is it that I can do so that I can actually empower other women and make them realize that we should also use the time we have on our maternity leave to do something and to not just run from one baby cafe to the next, which is also totally okay and which I also do, but then we should also use the time to do something. So I created a mentoring program for moms. It's called Career Mom, and I'm just putting the final steps on it. But of course, Corona hit me as well. So I started doing online events and virtual coffees just to really empower women and also show them that, yes, it is possible. We can do both. We can be mothers. And I think this panel is a wonderful example, even though that's not the topic, but we can do both. We can work and have a career and be successful moms and be passionate moms. So that's my background.
I agree completely. And actually, if any of you want to hear more about Career Mom and also actually contribute to the shaping of the program, if you are going to visit our opportunity corner in the expo area later, you're going to be linked there to the survey that they're running right now so that you can actually, contribute, help bring this further. Thank you, ladies, for introducing yourselves. I just want to remind our participants to pop over on Slido if you have any questions. And a cool thing that we're going to do right now is that we want to find out from where in the world or in Europe or in Austria people are tuning in from. So we're going to be running a poll over there on which I'm going to tell you the results on later once we find that out. But to get us started, I would actually want to know a thing that maybe is not as usual for a start, and that is that you all had great paths and you've done so many things. What would you consider to be your very biggest challenge to date? And if so, how did you manage to go over it, or are you still working through it?
who should go first?
Please, you can feel free.
Okay. I have to say the biggest challenge I've had, and I've had this throughout every single corporate career I've done and everything I've ever done, is self-doubt. 100% self-doubt. I think the biggest, being your own cheerleader, and not doubting yourself, and maybe sometimes swimming against the current or fighting an uphill battle. I think my biggest challenge, it doesn't matter if I was working in aviation, in the government, in sales, in building up this platform, in putting together a strategy. I think self-doubt is a constant challenge that I'll probably be 98 and I'll still be self-doubting.
Happens to the best of us.
Well, I guess
Ruth,
my biggest challenge is staying patient. I'm a person who always wants to do many things at a time, and especially now being a mom, I learned that it's just not possible. So it was a very big change for me having my kid, and it took me, to be honest, quite a long time to adjust to that new situation, because you're just not so, you're kind of influenced by your child like 24 hours a day, and you need to take care of him or her all the time. And I wanted to start working like pretty soon again. Like after a couple of months, I felt like, whoa, it would be nice to get back into work and to do stuff. And I taught a couple of sessions at the university in Krems, by the way.
I studied there.
Yeah.
Wow, we have a lot in common.
And then I just learned that it takes, I can't just take the hours out of the day. I'm at home full time with my boy, or at least I was. He will start kindergarten now in September. And the grandparents are not in Vienna, they are in Upper Austria, so I can only hand him over to the grandparents on a couple of days. And then I usually work and take time. And the other time I just need to take out of the day, like a phone call here, an email there, maybe working in the evening when he's in bed. And we did kind of maybe you can also hear it, kind of the traditional model of me staying at home and my husband working full time. He's also self-employed and he has his own company. So I was fine with, like, I wanted to stay home with my boy, but it takes so much patience to just wait for your own goals and for your own stuff that you want to do, that you can only do it once you've taken care of the child. And also I have to have a lot of patience with him, and this is also very, very hard sometimes.
Can you imagine?
Thank you for going first. It took me a really hard time to think about what my biggest challenge is, but I really found it. And for me, it's saying no. Saying no to something. I'm engaged in so many different things, and in voluntary engagements. I'm on the board of 𝗪𝗡𝗪. I work in charity organizations. I'm on the board of 2 other organizations. And right now, juggling a kid, a new business idea and everything, I really started saying no. And I think I should have done it much earlier. But that's just me, as you both are too, and probably many of us listening, we like to do things. We are action takers, but sometimes we really have to evaluate, and that's the challenge. What is it that will actually bring me forward and that will do the best for me? And things that I don't want to do, that I maybe don't have the time right now, that are not considered to what I want to do in the future, then I really started saying no. And I know it's hard, but I think at the end, it will help us drive forward even better if we start saying no to things that we just literally can't do.
I definitely agree, and we're going to come back to this a bit later. But first, regarding what you mentioned, Renee, something coming directly from our Slido questions for all of you, of course. Have you ever dealt, especially after coming back or while planning back to go back to work after maternity leave, dealt with imposter syndrome? And maybe even earlier in your careers, for everyone that's listening that plans to follow a similar path? If so, how have you dealt with this idea that, okay, maybe I don't know enough to be here, maybe I shouldn't have that much say in things in decision making? Or are you dealing with it still?
I have definitely felt that. I was 23, living in Moscow, and got promoted, and they said, "Do you want to do the job?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to do the job." All of a sudden, I had 18 people, a couple million budget, and I had no idea what to do. I had never seen a term sheet in my life. I went from school to being a flight attendant. Like, I didn't know what was happening. I had 100% imposter syndrome. And that's probably where my self-doubt comes from. And also with my kids, same thing. I went back to work when my daughter was 14 months, and then when my son was 11 months, because I got an job opportunity, I then again put him in daycare, and I felt so guilty, and I kept thinking, was that an okay thing to do? To put my wants and needs for this career path ahead of rearing my child? That was like the first thing. And the second thing was, the job that I got was within government. I had never worked in government before, and I had like a vague idea of who does what within the government. Like, what does the minister do? What does the cabinet do? What do the officers do? I had a vague idea of how it worked, but I didn't study at the Diplomatic Academy or anything to qualify me for that job either. So when entering that, like, there was a lot of imposter syndrome going on my side. But I think, and then again, I'm very happy I grew up in the U.S. because when you're growing up in the U.S. as a kid, if you're semi-good at school or if you're semi-good at anything, there's always like an amazing cheerleader there going like, wow, you did such a great job. That's amazing. And if you didn't do a great job, they said, you know what, it doesn't matter. It's going to work out next time. So that's kind of that's what shaped me as a young person, so that when I moved to Europe and I started, let's say, advancing in my career and having kids, and I had to make hard decisions. I'm going to put my kid in childcare and stop my maternity leave earlier than planned. Am I going to take this job that I'm not sure I can do because it sounds fun and it sounds amazing, and like maybe 70% of my skill set hits the mark? But what about that 30% that isn't hitting the mark? That's when I'm really happy that I had an American mother and an American upbringing for a certain amount of years in my life, because the worst thing that can happen to you is that it doesn't work out. Whereas I think here in Europe or in Austria, the culture is much different. Here, not being good at something or not doing a good job, like, that's like the worst possible thing that can happen to you here. Whereas my attitude is always more, well, I tried, but it didn't work out. And I think that's definitely helped me make those harder decisions. And that's also when I have friends or even my in-laws and family surrounding that are more that have the Austrian culture, the European culture, saying, "Oh gosh, Renee, don't do that. That's not a good idea. That's not how it's done here. We don't do that here." Or let's see if that's a good idea. I have a lot of voices around me that say that a lot, and therefore I'm also really happy for having had formative years where it was just like, you know what, just go for it. The worst thing you can do is that it doesn't work out. And in that sense, even with my kids, it's the same way. I think when you have kids and you're bilingual, and then again, it was the question: is it smart for them to be speaking English and German at home? Like, will I be capable of actually conveying the language to such a point that they're going to be good at it and it won't confuse, their native German? So there's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of imposter syndrome going on, and I think that's something. Maybe that's something I, as a middle child, tend to carry with. I'm one of 5. I'm number 3. Maybe that's something that you carry around with you just by growing up. But I think the best way to deal with it is just to close your eyes and power through. I think you have to ignore the noise, ignore the stupid voice in the back of your head, and just power through. And if it didn't work out, you know what? There are worse things in life.
That's true. And it actually makes me think of a statistic that I think a lot of us know on how women feel empowered or entitled to do something when, let's say, they meet 100% of the criteria that is asked for, as opposed to men who, for example, apply for jobs if they see I can, half of this I know, half of this I fulfill, should be good. So I think that's an important thing to learn. But speaking of, knowing, okay, what it is that I need to get done, and especially since, Ruth, you mentioned you're building this mentoring program for moms, how did you, having done so many things, how did you learn, okay, what should my next step be? Or did you have any guidance in your career? Did you have maybe mentors or role models that helped you know, okay, this is what works for me, maybe this is what can work for you as well, or do not do this in any case?
Yeah, great question. And since we're all here being mentors, I think it's a wonderful question. When I was kind of stuck at the point and realized, hey, I can't go back into my old job for the biggest client, that I was building up the fundraising for Fulbright, I realized, okay, what is it that I can do? And I went back into what has helped me the most in my past career, and it was actually mentoring. So 12 years ago, I had a wonderful mentor, and she really helped me create the first youth university. She helped me, go through to the CEO level people and C-level executives and help getting them on board, etc. So I thought mentoring is such a powerful concept, and then it can also work. It really works well when you have a cohesive group and when you have people that really want to change something. And I think one thing we all know is that once you become a mom, you are immediately at the same level with other moms, and you talk about things, the craziest thing that you would never have talked about in your life. I don't even want to go into details here in this conference, but it's really crazy things you share with the person you've never even spoken to, just because you're on an equal level and you both have had children. So knowing that just gave me, the best idea of what to do next. But I think a lot of it is having a mentor and having passion. And then one thing I think I want to add to that mix is flexibility. A lot of times there's chances that just come to you and you need to grab them and go with them and run with them. And sometimes as women, and it's something Renee also said, and I'm having this problem in my family right now, where a woman that's been offered a high-level executive job doesn't want to take it because she's afraid she won't succeed. And I think a lot of times we doubt too much as women, and we just need to do it and take chances and run with them. And that's also how we get back into work, using chances and using networking. And I think that's a big part. And I think actually Katerina and I met in Älvbach before and did some networking together at one time.
Oh, yeah, I was probably pregnant back then.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Thank you. That's awesome. And a bit of a shameless plug, because we were talking about this. All the wonderful ladies that you can see are actually also mentors in our own mentoring program at the Female Factor, where we're trying to guide women of all ages also towards career fulfillment, whatever that might look for them. So whenever we're done or whenever you get a quick moment, hop on over to Tanya, who's at the beach, and she's actually answering there all your questions.
Oh, poor her, suffering at the beach.
Exactly, right? The only one joining us from Tel Aviv. And yeah, speaking of Tel Aviv, interesting to see that our live poll on Slido actually showed that the two most common locations from people tuning in are Austria, Vienna mainly, and the UK, London mainly. So sticking with a lot of women from a lot of countries, we're trying to really go international here. But yeah, to go back to what Ruth as well, you mentioned before, this idea of saying no, of knowing how to prioritize. And I know this is a question that everyone wants to hear about, and you've probably been asked a lot, all of you. How do you find any resemblance of balance? Or are you more of an advocate now maybe for routines? Do you just go with the flow? How do you combine all of these responsibilities that you have now? And I mean, Katarina, maybe you can start, tell us about it.
I'm just thinking about the question and asking myself what the best answer would be. I think going with the flow is probably what I'm doing. I guess I'm bad at prioritizing. I mean, to be honest, it seems kind of maybe as a stereotype, but the child comes first. And then all the other projects. I mean, I also want to have my own career again, and as Ruth said, like I think it's a good thing to say no to different things that come to you and that you don't want to do. But on the other hand, right now I've decided, like, for me it was a bit like I think Renee said that she felt guilty because she went back to work earlier than she had actually thought that she would. And for me, it was the opposite. So I actually thought that, like, after 12 months, oh my God, okay, what am I going to do at home for 12 months? That's like a year and not working. And in this year, I actually decided that we are not going to put Leopold in kindergarten with 12 months, but later with 18 months or 20 actually, now in September. And so, yeah, I decided for myself that for now, and probably also we want to have a second child, not a child as well. So I guess for the next couple of years, children and family will be first. And I do want to work. And I always said that I wanted to have a certain income. And I kind of find my ways to get like to the monthly income that I want to have for myself, just to feel like I'm also contributing in a financial way. But apart from that, I know that now is my family time, and I'm working on the projects that I want to work on, like a bit on the side, a bit here, a bit there, and just so that I know that once the time for me and for my project will come, I'll be ready to do them. So I have like 2 or 3 things in my head that I actually want to work on. As I said, it's always too many different projects, and I'm just working on them a little bit here and there. And yeah, I know that maybe like it will take another 2 or 3 years. I think this is something that now is different than before having a child, that like 2 or 3 years doesn't seem that long of a period anymore. And I know that like in 2 or 3 years, my time will come again. And until that time, we are like building a house right now. We want to have another child and so on. And I'm working on different stuff. And this is just, yeah, go with the flow, I guess. And just make sure that I'm ready once I want to do something for myself again.
Yeah, going with the flow. Somehow always seems like it helps. Do you ladies have the same approach? What do you think?
Do you want to go?
Whatever, Renee, but I can go. I just had a quick thought in my mind. One of my things has been to really like divert time to certain things. So I'm even doing like a working office program now where I give Nick my 10 months to someone who's actually taking care of him and watching him. And then I have a few hours where I just focus on work, getting things done, projects. And then personally, I'm also more relaxed in playing the stupidest game over and over again for the, I don't know, 100th time, or picking up something because he's just throwing things on the ground. So like diverting time into different things, and also delegating, which is also really hard and would have been my second challenge, delegating things even to my husband and to other people where they offer it and they say, hey, do you need help? Do you need someone to babysit? And actually taking those offers has been really hard for me, but now I'm fully doing it. Like I was saying to my husband, here he is, take him, leave, like now, come back in 3 hours, not earlier. And this is my time now for this conference and for limitless mentoring. And then afterwards, I'll be all in again and I'll be a mom and I'll take care of everything. But right now is my time. And I think having that focus has really helped me. And that doesn't mean that it has to be having a child, that for having that focus, even for other things, like not getting distracted by email and really focusing on one thing, which I'm still also working on. But I know there's a lot of ways to manage that, and I've really taken that by heart to use that now.
I have a hybrid approach between the two of you. On the one hand, I've always been more of a go with the flow type of person. Just that's just how I am naturally. But because of my first career that I have, a lot of things that you do in aviation is based on NASA and military, and it's very organized and very strict. And there's a certain way you do things, a certain type of checklist, a certain things you do for the safety. And so when I transitioned into, I always say, jobs on the ground, I've always done more of a hybrid thing, and especially with my kids as well. So prior to the pandemic, there was like a very organized way of doing things, left room for flexibility. It was flexible. There was just like a general structure. So, you know, there's time increments where things were done, just a general, very strict structure, but that structure gave me, you know, time to go do my 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, have drinks with the girls. The kids were happy. They did their afternoon activities. So that having that structure in place helped me and my husband both, because we're both pretty spontaneous, crazy people. And we knew that, okay, on Tuesday between 6 and midnight, that's my time to go wild. I can go out with the girls. I can go to the movies. I can do whatever I want. So we had like a very, just kind of like a time increment thing, but it was loose. So we structured it how we needed it. And then during the pandemic, that whole thing went to shit. It was just really like TV all the time, you know, whatever to get them quiet so I could jump on my calls and get my work done. And now, after the pandemic and getting back into work and getting everything done, it's really just about, we were reinstating the structure. But and that really helps. I work well when there's like a general structure where I know, okay, these are generally what my days look like, and then I can adapt things within the calendar. So it's more of a hybrid model.
Well, I think it's important to find out what works specifically for every situation. I just want to give a heads up to the people that are watching us that we're in our last 10 minutes of the Q&A. So if any of you want to take the opportunity to take the stage, also open up your camera and ask a question to our wonderful ladies here directly, you can. And in the meanwhile, I want to continue again with something that we've been asked because, again, you have a lot to do, you have a lot on your plate, and I'm sure there's moments when you're like, I'm overwhelmed, I cannot do this anymore in any chance, I cannot work, I cannot deal. How do you get back your groove? How do you find concentration and focus again to continue? Ruth, maybe you want to start if you thought of something, or if any of you already has their trick.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is doing something completely different and sports, which I have to admit I've been neglecting. But I love running, so sometimes that has helped me. And sometimes even, and I noticed a lot of moms that say that trick really works, getting up even earlier than my son and having an hour maybe from like 5:30 to 6:30 and something, and then starting the day relaxed. I've done it twice in 10 months. But but right now, you know, when he wakes up during the night, you don't have the time. But there's a lot of people that really hone in on that concept and say it's the best ever, because then you're relaxed throughout the day and you really have that time for you. So that sometimes helps. And then my last resort is having a glass of wine at the end of the day, sitting on my porch and having a nice discussion with my husband and actually reflecting on things that have been accomplished and getting back into the mode and saying, even though you still have, I don't know, a gazillion things to do, this is what I've already done. And these are the 3 things I'm really proud of. And really reflecting that, and that helps, you know, clear the mind a little bit and good one with it.
Of course.
Well, I would say, I was thinking about it, I would say what's really important for me now is just to get some things off my plate at a certain time. Like when I feel like, okay, I have to write a couple of emails or I have to do a couple of phone calls, then just to get it done at the first possibility that you have. And this kind of plays back into the question about self-doubt and being afraid of doing something wrong. Like I used to have that too, like in many different situations. And I remember like sitting at work and wondering if I should send this email the way that I've written it, and then rewriting it and thinking about it, or maybe taking like, I don't know, 10 minutes to think about a phone call before actually calling the person, just to think of all the different things that you could say or that you could be asked or something. And what I do now is just click call because I have like 10 or 15 minutes. I need to do this. I need to get this phone call done, and I just don't care anymore. And if there's like two typos in the email, it doesn't really matter. It's just, yeah, getting things done. I've always liked the phrase "better done than perfect," and I've always kind of lived by that. And so I think you don't really, or sometimes I also have these like 2 times a week. The boy is with my parents or with my husband or somebody, and I have a couple of hours to myself. But the rest of the week is just dividing attention between child and what you want to do for work. So you just, if you have a couple of minutes because he's concentrated on some kind of game or sleeping or whatever, yeah, just get it done, get it off your plate, and that's it.
Better done than perfect is definitely the mantra.
For me, I have to say it's really about knowing that I can't do everything and being okay with that. I think that's like one of the things you learn through time. I definitely learned it when I became a mom, that you do not, the things you do, it's never 100% perfect, and you need to learn to be okay with that. And also splitting it up. My husband definitely, like, we're at the point now where he literally does 60% of the work and I do 40. Like I'm going to be honest that I feel bad about it sometimes, but then again I don't, because I know like we initially started the family, I was 100% doing the lion's share. And now that the kids are older, I mean, he's doing the pickups, the drop-offs. He's literally our family cook. I think maybe I cook once a week, if even. And really just splitting it up. And we talk about, we really divide our workload according to the priorities, what needs to be done, who has the capacity to do it, as opposed to who like according to traditional roles should be doing it. So that was a growing pain for him too, because he grew up in a very traditional household, and I think when he married me, he thought things would be different. So that was a fun experience. I was learning experience for both of us. You know, but after 11 years of being married, and we've got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and us both have careers and both wanting to have like my girls trip and him go on his guys trip and do the family thing. I think it's really just about dividing and conquering, being fair, and really being fair to yourself, and admitting what you can and cannot do, knowing your strengths. Then you're like, I am not the best of cooks. I'm a great baker, not the best of cooks when it comes to meat or whatever. And that's his strength. So I do the birthdays. He does like the day-to-day dinners. It's okay. We're okay with it. And I think learning to be okay with it and learning to maybe not have the most traditional model. Being fair to yourself and being fair to your environment.
I think being fair and kind to yourself is the best kind of message to leave our participants with. Unfortunately, we've reached the end of this session. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here and for sharing from your knowledge and wisdom. And of course, I'm sure that our participants maybe will shoot you a message if you're around to ask you anything. And I invite, of course, all of you to continue watching. Right now, our program will move back to the general hop-in. So I invite you to take this break in our schedule to really take advantage of all the cool things the platform has to offer. You can message people, you can create your group sessions, you can really like get to know everybody that's here. And we'll be resuming here at 5:20. But yeah, in the meanwhile, thank you so much once again, ladies, and I hope everyone really got their answers and everything they wanted to hear out of it.